Hello everyone, let's take a look at how to progress in the Forgotten Castle event. So, the gist of things is that you have to collect dice by performing these actions that are outlined near the bottom of the screen just here below, and you can get up to 300 for doing each of these quests. And then the way that we progress to each level is by spending dice pieces according to the amount that it says on the screen, and to attempt to finally get to these chests to open up and find keys within them to actually move on to the next set of levels. And so here's a quick guide on some of the best ways to get your way through the new Forgotten Castle event. So there's 5 levels to this, and each level obviously has a different layout, and depending on which direction you choose, it actually costs a different amount of gems to go in certain directions. So this is basically going to be my explanation of how much each way is going to cost you, so maybe then you'd be able to choose some of the less expensive routes to hopefully get the key as quickly as possible to move on to the next level. So, this is basically the starting point of level 1 when we first begin the Forgotten Castle event. And essentially how this is going to work, if I can get my right layer up, is there are 4 directions for us to go in, obviously, and the first way that I would normally think of is to just go straight up, and this way right up here, that would be a straight path, and all up it actually costs 1,250 dice to go up this way, but that is if you have to pay the full amount to actually finish off the 400 dice fight. If you can do the fight without having to pay for it, then this way actually only costs 850 all up for this direction. Then if we go right, there's actually a couple of ways up there, but essentially if we go up the left hand side, it would cost 850 all up, so the same as the top way without having to pay. Or if we go the bottom direction, then it would actually cost us 778 dice all up. Or if you could do the fight without having to pay for it, it actually only costs about 380. So essentially, this right hand side, the bottom route, is going to be the cheapest one as far as I can tell. Then if we go straight down, this direction is 850 all up, and then if we go left, that's another straight path that costs 1,250. Pretty much the top and the left hand routes are the exact same cost, so it's only the right hand side and the bottom ones that you really have to worry about. And so if I actually take off this layer, then that is essentially what we're working with. So this is the starting point here, and since this is a little bit messy, I have actually made a little diagram for it to make a little bit more sense. So this is what I've come up with here. So you can see that the blue is our starting point, red are the fights that you have to pay for to get through if you can't do them, and the yellow are the chests. So I'm actually going to go through this again so that it actually makes a little bit more sense, at least to our eyes. So like I said, the top route and the left-hand route of level 1 are essentially the same cost, 1,250 each way, and that was my Mania actually calling me to do the event. But yeah, they're 1,250 just straight up, or 850 when you don't have to pay for the fights. So that's pretty much the cost of those two. And then with this right hand side, there's obviously 2 different directions that we can choose from, since we can either go this bottom route here and go through this fight, and these fights are 400 I believe, So like I said, this one is actually the cheapest by far to try out first because it costs 778 regularly or 378 without having to pay for this fight right here. And then this top one, like I said before, that one would be 850. And then this bottom one here, another 850 right there. Again, it is a little bit messy to kind of explain, but this is more or less the best way to sort of describe it, or at least show off what is actually going on in this event, since it is a little bit complicated, obviously. But like I said, if we can get rid of all of this mess now, I'll just go back a little bit. There we go. So, like I said, the way that I would suggest would definitely be going down this way right here. And again, if you can just do this fight without having to pay for it, because the way that I've been doing it is if I have at least one dragon that can do the fights, then normally Dragon Fury Essence can get you through them without having to pay for anything. But obviously Dragon Fury Essence is a little bit tough to come by, so I mean it really depends on whether you can afford it. But those are basically the layouts of the layout of level 1. Obviously level 2 and beyond are going to be a lot more complex than this, so I hope this at least helps some of you guys out in deciding which way you want to go. Obviously, with this guide, I'm assuming that the key pieces are randomly generated for each person. If they're not, then obviously I can add that in as an annotation if that ever changes, but I found my piece in the bottom chest, but I'm not sure. You might want to check the right hand side because again, it could only cost you about 400 dice pieces, and that's like less than 2 lots of item collections, so there you go. But that is pretty much the gist of level 1. God, my writing is terrible, but this is more or less just to help you guys out. But for the next levels, I mainly wanted to make this so that you guys could basically tell me what you'd suggest to make the next levels a little bit easier for you to understand. Like, what about this guide was a little bit too confusing? What wasn't confusing enough, just too simplified, or whatever else? Or was it just fine? Did it actually help you understand what was going on? But if you found this a little bit confusing, then I did make this with a little bit of help from Mugba.me's website, since they are actually keeping tracks of all of the point costs for each route, basically, for each level, and they have actually done up to level 5 so far, so it would really be worth you taking a look at this link. I will leave it in the description, but hopefully it'll make more sense when you see it in a diagram format for a lot of you. But anyway, like I said, that is pretty much the gist of things this time. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments below. But until next time, I will see you then.